My wife took the college money for our children and ran off with her money. I was devastated until my child said. Ryan, 41, had spent nearly 2 decades of his life climbing the corporate ladder in the logistics industry. He wasn't a CEO, nor did he own the company, but he had built a solid reputation as a reliable, efficient professional who could navigate the high-stress world of supply chains, freight management, and tight deadlines. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough to ensure that his wife, Melissa, 39, could fulfill her long-standing dream of being a stay-at-home mom to their twins, Lucas and Sophie, now 17. They had an enviable life, at least on the surface. A spacious, well-maintained house in a good neighborhood, 2 cars in the driveway, regular vacations, and college funds that were already set aside for when the twins graduated. Ryan had done everything right. He had married a woman he loved, worked hard, provided for his family, and sacrificed his own comforts to make sure they never lacked anything. But beneath this picture-perfect life, something had been eroding for years. Melissa had always wanted to be a stay-at-home mother, and Ryan had supported her in that dream. She thrived in managing their household, attending every school event, meticulously planning meals, and making sure the home was always in order. Ryan admired her dedication, but as time passed, her role in the household became almost a rigid identity. She wasn't just a mother, she was only a mother. And while Ryan continued to grind at work, taking late-night calls and managing crises at all hours, he started to feel more like a provider than a husband. His work consumed him, but he had little choice. Logistics was relentless, shipments delayed, customers angry, and supervisors breathing down his neck. There were weeks when he barely had time to sit down for a proper dinner with his family. He told himself it was temporary, that once the kids were in college, maybe he and Melissa could finally reconnect. Maybe they could travel, go back to being just Ryan and Melissa instead of Dad and Mom. The twins, Lucas and Sophie, were entering adulthood, one foot still in childhood, the other in the uncertain world of their futures. They were both bright, ambitious, and, to Ryan's relief, mostly well-behaved. Lucas was drawn to engineering, spending hours tinkering with computers, while Sophie had a passion for writing, always buried in books or scribbling in her journal. They had their teenage moods, their moments of rebellion, but overall, Ryan was proud of the young adults they were becoming. Melissa, however, had started to change. It was subtle at first. She seemed restless. Despite having the financial security to enjoy hobbies, she didn't seem interested in much outside of the home. She was always there, always present, always available, but there was a distance, a growing disconnection between them. Conversations became routine, mechanical. They talked about the kids, groceries, bills, and house repairs. But there were no more deep talks at midnight, no more inside jokes, no more spontaneous laughter. Ryan noticed she had become more protective of her phone. She never used to care where she left it, but now it was always face down, always within reach. If it buzzed, she would check it quickly and dismiss it, sometimes angling the screen away from him. When he asked about it, she would shrug and say it was just a group chat or a school email. She also started dressing differently, not drastically, but noticeably. She paid more attention to her appearance, something she hadn't done in years. She started going to the gym, even though she had never expressed interest in fitness before. When Ryan commented on how good she looked, she would smile, but it never quite reached her eyes. The tension between them grew, unspoken but suffocating. Ryan tried to push the thoughts away, telling himself he was just being paranoid, that maybe Melissa was just going through something personal. Maybe she was feeling the weight of the twins growing up, the impending empty nest syndrome creeping in. But deep down, a gnawing feeling had already taken root. He remembered the way she used to light up when he walked through the door after a long day at work. The way she used to call him just to hear his voice, the way they used to stay up late watching terrible movies, laughing until their stomachs hurt. That woman was gone, replaced by someone distant, distracted. One evening, he came home earlier than usual, a rare occurrence. The house was quiet, the twins were out with friends, and Melissa was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. She didn't hear him at first, and he watched as a small, secretive smile crossed her lips before she quickly locked the screen. It was such a small moment, but it was like a hammer to his chest. Something was wrong. Ryan had spent years trusting Melissa implicitly. He had never been the jealous type. He had never felt the need to check her phone, to question her whereabouts, to doubt her love. But now, standing in his own kitchen, watching the way she guarded that screen like it held the secrets of the universe, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Fear that the life he had worked so hard to build was crumbling right in front of him. Fear that everything he had believed about his marriage was a lie. Melissa looked up then, startled, as if she hadn't expected him to be there. Hey, she said, forcing a smile. You're home early. Ryan nodded, his throat dry. Yeah. Thought I'd surprise you. Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she recovered. That's nice, she said, tucking her phone into her pocket. Did you eat? I can heat something up. He wanted to ask her, wanted to demand to know what was on that phone, who she had been texting, what had made her smile like that. But instead, he swallowed it down. Yeah, he said quietly. I already ate. She nodded, turning back to the counter, but the silence between them was deafening. That night, as Ryan lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling while she slept soundly beside him, he realized something terrifying. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't overthinking. Melissa was hiding something. And whatever it was going to destroy everything. Melissa had never been the type to obsess over her appearance. For most of their marriage, she had been comfortable in her own skin, wearing what she liked, keeping a simple routine, and focusing on the kids and their home. But now, almost overnight, something had changed. It started with the gym, an innocent enough decision at first. Ryan hadn't thought much of it when she first mentioned signing up for a membership. She had shrugged, saying she just wanted to get in better shape and feel good about herself. He had even encouraged her, thinking maybe it would be a good outlet for her, something to break the monotony of everyday life. But soon, the gym wasn't just a part of her routine, it was her routine. She went nearly every day, sometimes for hours. She started meal prepping, measuring portions, cutting out foods she had always enjoyed. She bought new workout clothes, tight-fitting leggings, tank tops, brand-name sneakers. At first, Ryan thought it was just a phase, something new that would pass once she got tired of it. But Melissa didn't get tired of it. If anything, she became more dedicated. And then came the changes in her wardrobe. Gone were the comfortable sweatpants, the loose sweaters she had always worn around the house. Instead, she started dressing differently, better, trendier. New jeans that hugged her figure, tops that showed more than she used to. She started doing her makeup even when she wasn't going anywhere special, styling her hair before running errands. Ryan noticed, but he didn't say anything at first. He told himself not to be that kind of husband, the insecure, controlling type. But then the comments started. I feel like I wasted my 20s, always playing it safe, she had said one night, standing in front of their bedroom mirror as she examined her reflection in a new dress. Ryan looked up from his phone, frowning. Wasted? What are you talking about? Melissa sighed, adjusting the thin strap on her shoulder. I mean, we just fell into this routine, you know? Work, kids, bills. There's no excitement anymore. No spontaneity. Ryan forced a laugh. I didn't know raising twins and paying for a mortgage was supposed to be spontaneous. She rolled her eyes but didn't argue. At first, it was just words, passing comments that he tried to ignore. But then it became actions. She stopped being as present at home. She skipped out on family movie nights, always claiming she had plans or that she was too tired from the gym. She started going out more, at first just an occasional girls' night, but then it became a regular thing. The worst part wasn't just the going out. It was the way she went out. She used to dress comfortably when she met up with her friends. But now, she dressed up, tight skirts, heels, perfume that lingered in the hallway long after she had left. She never used to wear perfume for Ryan. The twins noticed too. Is Mom coming to my game this weekend? Sophie had asked one evening as she laced up her soccer cleat. Ryan hesitated, pretending to check his phone. She said she's not sure yet. Might have something going on. Sophie's face fell, but she didn't argue. Lucas, who had been silent, scoffed under his breath. She never has time for us anymore. She's always busy. Ryan opened his mouth to defend her, but the words caught in his throat. Because Lucas was right. Melissa had started missing everything. Sophie's games, Lucas's science fairs, family dinners. She always had an excuse. Work event. Gym class. Plans with the girls. The excuses piled up, but Ryan didn't know how to confront her without sounding paranoid or possessive. So he held it in. Until the night she didn't come home. It was supposed to be a regular Saturday night. Melissa had said she was going out with her friends. Nothing unusual. Ryan had been the one to drive the twins to their separate plans, then came home and waited for Melissa, expecting her to return around her usual time. But midnight passed. Then 1 o'clock. By 2 a.m., he had tried calling her. No answer. By 3, he had started pacing the living room, checking his phone every few minutes. Finally, at nearly 4 in the morning, the front door creaked open. Melissa walked in quietly, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She was trying to be quiet, probably assuming everyone was asleep. But Ryan was sitting in the dim light of the living room, waiting. She froze when she saw him. Oh, she said, blinking. You're still up? Ryan stared at her. She looked different. Her makeup was smudged, her hair was messy, and there was a glow to her skin, not the kind that came from the gym. Where the hell have you been? Ryan's voice was quiet, but firm. Melissa sighed, rolling her eyes. Ryan, please. Not now. Not now. He let out a humorless laugh. It's 4 in the morning, Melissa. Where were you? I told you, I was out with the girls. Ryan's jaw clenched. All night. Melissa tossed her purse onto the table, rubbing her temples. We went to a bar after dinner. Time got away from us. He stared at her, trying to read between the lines. Who drove you home? She hesitated. Too long. Lisa, she finally said, naming one of her friends. Ryan exhaled sharply. Let me see your phone. Melissa's expression darkened instantly. Excuse me. Your phone. He held out his hand. If you were with Lisa, show me the messages. She let out a bitter laugh. Wow. So now I have to prove where I was? What, are you my father now? Ryan didn't back down. If you have nothing to hide, just show me. Melissa shook her head, scoffing. I can't believe this. You're being ridiculous. But she didn't take out her phone. She didn't even reach for it. Ryan's stomach sank. He felt the weight of something undeniable pressing down on him, suffocating him. Melissa turned away, heading for the stairs. I'm going to bed. Ryan didn't follow her. He sat in that chair for hours, staring at the spot where she had stood, feeling something inside him crack, something he wasn't sure could ever be repaired. The next morning, the twins ate their breakfast in silence. Melissa was nowhere to be found. She had slept in. Again. Lucas pushed his cereal around the bowl, shaking his head. She doesn't care anymore. Ryan wanted to tell him he was wrong. But he couldn't. Because for the first time in their entire marriage, he wasn't sure he believed it himself. Ryan had convinced himself that things couldn't possibly get worse. Melissa's late nights, her constant absences, the slow erosion of the family they had built together. It was all painful, humiliating even, but he still held on to a sliver of hope that she would snap out of it. That this was just some temporary crisis, a midlife itch she needed to scratch. But then Lucas found the dating profile. It happened on a random evening. Ryan had been sitting at the kitchen table, exhausted, staring blankly at his laptop. He had meant to finish some work, but his mind had been elsewhere, on Melissa, on their marriage, on the unspoken things festering between them. Lucas stormed in, phone in hand, his face flushed with anger. Dad, he said, his voice shaking. You need to see this. Ryan barely had time to react before his son thrust the phone in front of him. At first, Ryan couldn't process what he was looking at. It was a dating profile, some trendy, swipe-based app that he had only vaguely heard of. The pictures were the first thing that hit him. It was Melissa, his wife. Except she wasn't his wife in those pictures. She was someone else entirely. Gym selfies, low-cut tops, lips slightly parted in what could only be described as a suggestive smile. The captions were even worse. Looking for fun. Gym rat with a wild side. Swipe right if you can keep up. Ryan's mouth went dry. His hands clenched around the phone. Lucas stood in front of him, his fists at his sides, his face contorted in disbelief. Mom is cheating. Ryan swallowed hard, his stomach twisting violently. Lucas, where did you find this? I was just messing around online, looking at random profiles, and then I saw her. His voice cracked. I thought maybe it was a fake account, a scam or something, but then I saw the pictures. And Dad, she's got messages on there. Ryan swiped down, his thumb trembling. His vision blurred as he scrolled through the evidence. Messages, conversations, flirty exchanges. Some of them were nothing more than harmless banter. Others were explicit. Lucas was still talking, but Ryan could barely hear him over the roaring in his ears. She's not even hiding it, Dad. She's out there embarrassing all of us. Ryan squeezed his eyes shut. This was it. This was the moment he could no longer lie to himself. Melissa wasn't just distant. She wasn't just unhappy. She had checked out of their marriage. He had spent months walking on eggshells, hoping that whatever was going on with her would pass. But it wasn't passing. It was getting worse. And then, like some cruel twist of fate, Sophie walked in. She was holding a stack of papers, her expression grave. Dad, I need to show you something. Lucas turned to her. Not now, Sophie. No, her voice was firm. It's important. Ryan forced himself to focus. What is it? Sophie took a deep breath and dropped the papers onto the table. Ryan stared down at them. Bank statements. She pointed at a number near the bottom of the page. There's money missing. A lot of it. Ryan's eyes darted over the figures. $60,000. Gone. He couldn't breathe. This is from your college fund. Sophie nodded stiffly. I know. Lucas leaned over, his expression darkening. Wait, what? Sophie's voice was eerily calm. I was looking over everything to make sure we were on track for applications. That's when I saw it. The withdrawals started months ago. Little by little, but then it got bigger. $2,000 here. $5,000 there. It adds up. Lucas clenched his jaw. Where did it go? Ryan knew the answer before Sophie even said it. To Mom's account. Ryan felt like he was going to be sick. He stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled over. Where is she? Lucas folded his arms. Out. Like always. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. This couldn't wait. He needed answers now. Melissa walked in an hour later, acting as if nothing had happened. She tossed her purse onto the counter and yawned, stretching her arms like she had spent the day running errands instead of whatever it was she was actually doing. When she saw the three of them sitting at the kitchen table, her smile faltered. What's this? Ryan held up the bank statements. You want to explain this? Melissa blinked. Explain what? Ryan slammed the papers onto the table. $60,000, Melissa. Gone. From the kids' college fund. Her reaction wasn't what he expected. She didn't gasp. She didn't try to deny it. She didn't even look guilty. She laughed. Ryan stared at her in stunned silence as she shook her head, chuckling to herself. I knew you were going to overreact. Lucas shot out of his chair. Overreact? Are you insane? Melissa sighed, crossing her arms. Calm down. You can still go to college. Just take out loans like everyone else. Sophie looked like she had been slapped. You stole from us. Melissa scoffed. Oh please. Stole? It's our money. I just needed some of it for myself. Ryan gritted his teeth. For what, Melissa? What could possibly be worth $60,000? She rolled her eyes. A few things. Gym memberships, trips, shopping. A little fun. She gestured at herself. Do you know how expensive it is to actually take care of yourself? You wouldn't, because you've never tried. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. You mean you blew all that money to play dress up and flirt with guys online? Melissa's face hardened. Watch your tone, young man. Ryan slammed his fist onto the table. No. You don't get to act like a victim here. Melissa narrowed her eyes. Oh, so I'm just supposed to sit around, bored out of my mind, playing the perfect housewife while you work late every night? I deserve to live a little. Ryan was shaking with rage. You deserve? You deserve? Our kids deserve a future. And you stole it from them. Melissa scoffed, leaning against the counter. Don't be so dramatic. They'll be fine. Sophie stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back with a screech. I hope whatever you spent that money on was worth it, Mom. Because we'll never forget this. Melissa waved a hand dismissively. Oh, stop being so melodramatic. Lucas looked at Ryan, his jaw clenched. Are you really just going to let her get away with this? Ryan stared at Melissa, his heart pounding. No. Not this time. Something inside him snapped, the last thread of patience, of hope, of anything holding him back. Melissa had made her choice. And now, she was going to face the consequences. Ryan had spent the last 20 years believing he had built a strong, stable family. He had worked himself to exhaustion, provided everything his wife and children could ever need, and never once thought he would end up here, standing in his own home, staring at his wife as she dismissed the fact that she had stolen from their kids, betrayed their marriage, and humiliated them all. But he wasn't done yet. Sophie wasn't done yet. After the confrontation, Ryan barely slept. He lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while Melissa slept soundly beside him, as if she hadn't just admitted to taking $60,000 from their children's future. As if she hadn't mocked them for being angry. The next morning, while Melissa was out, probably at the gym, parading around in her new outfits and flirting with whoever would pay her attention, Sophie stormed into the kitchen, her laptop in hand. Dad, she said, her voice shaking, I found something. Ryan looked up, weary but alert. What is it? Sophie placed the laptop on the kitchen table and turned the screen toward him. At first, he wasn't sure what he was looking at. A social media page, Instagram. A profile filled with gym selfies, motivational quotes, and pictures of a man flexing in expensive workout gear. His username was something ridiculous like Nate the Great _fitness, and his captions were filled with self-promotion. Who is this? Ryan asked. Sophie clenched her jaw. Nathan Carter. He's a trainer at the gym Mom goes to. And he's more than just her trainer. Ryan's stomach twisted. What do you mean? Sophie clicked onto another tab. There were private messages. Screenshots, taken from what looked like Melissa's email. Mom's an idiot, Sophie muttered. She didn't even bother using a separate email for her, Whatever this is. Ryan leaned in, his hands shaking as he scrolled. There it was. Flirty messages, plans to meet up at hotels, jokes about how Melissa was finally spending money on something fun instead of her boring home life. But the worst part? Nathan wasn't just using Melissa. He was using several women. Sophie pulled up another screenshot. Look at this, she said. Mom sent him money. A lot of it. Ryan's heart pounded. More bank statements. Thousands of dollars transferred directly from their joint account to Nathan's business. She's been funding him, Sophie said bitterly. She invested in his personal training business. He convinced her it was a smart move, that she was helping him grow. But look at this. She scrolled down, revealing another set of messages. Nathan was sending the exact same texts to another woman. Copy-pasting the same sweet lies, the same promises. Melissa wasn't special. She was just another paycheck to him. Lucas walked into the room, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What's going on? Sophie looked up at him, her expression cold. Mom's boyfriend isn't just a loser. He's a scammer. Lucas stiffened. Wait, what? Ryan exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. This wasn't just about Melissa cheating. This was about everything. The stolen money, the lies, the destruction of their family. And for what? A man who didn't even care about her? Ryan pushed away from the table, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. That's it, he said. I'm done. Lucas watched him carefully. What are you going to do? Ryan clenched his fist. Everything. Ryan didn't waste time. He called Jason, his closest friend, a lawyer who had been through enough messy divorces to know exactly how to handle this. Jason didn't even hesitate. Gather everything, he said. Every bank statement, every message, every dating profile. She's been reckless, Ryan. That's going to work in your favor. Ryan didn't need to be told twice. Sophie printed out everything. Lucas backed up files onto a hard drive. Every dollar Melissa had funneled to Nathan. Every hotel receipt. Every text message dripping with betrayal. Ryan wasn't going to let Melissa walk away from this unscathed. The next morning, he waited. Melissa strolled into the house, wearing another one of her expensive gym outfits, sipping a smoothie like she didn't have a care in the world. When she saw them all sitting at the kitchen table, her smile faltered. What's this? She asked, setting her bag down. Ryan stood. He slid the thick stack of papers across the table toward her. Read it. Melissa frowned, flipping through the pages. At first, her expression was blank. Then her eyes widened. Then, she laughed. Oh, come on, she scoffed. You actually hired a lawyer? Are you seriously taking this that far? Ryan's blood boiled. That far. He leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. Melissa, you stole from our kids. You threw away our marriage. And for what? Some washed-up trainer who's using you like an ATM. Her smile twitched. You don't know what you're talking about. Sophie spoke up, her voice like ice. He's dating other women, Mom. He's using all of you for money. Melissa's jaw tightened. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. Oh, now she's quiet? Ryan didn't let up. I'm filing for divorce. And I'm making sure you get nothing. Melissa's head snapped up. You can't do that. Jason, who had been standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke. Actually, he said, he can. And he will. Melissa's face paled. Ryan crossed his arms. I already called the bank. You won't get another cent from me. And once this goes to court, you'll be lucky to walk away with anything. Melissa clenched her fists. You can't do this to me. Ryan tilted his head. You did this to yourself. Melissa's breathing was uneven now. She looked at Lucas, then at Sophie. You're really just going to stand there? You're going to take his side. Sophie's voice was calm but lethal. You're not our mom anymore. Melissa flinched. Lucas folded his arms. Hope Nathan was worth it. Melissa looked around the room, at the family she had betrayed, at the life she had burned to the ground. For the first time, she looked small. Ryan grabbed his keys. Get out, Melissa. She blinked. What? This is my house. Our house. But not yours. Not anymore. Melissa stared at him, realization finally sinking in. You're serious. Ryan didn't blink. Dead serious. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Fine. She grabbed her bag, her hands shaking. You'll regret this. Ryan watched as she stormed toward the door. I already regret ever loving you. She stopped. Just for a second. Then, without another word, she walked out. And for the first time in months, Ryan felt free. Melissa had convinced herself that no matter what happened, she would land on her feet. She had always been good at spinning things in her favor, playing the victim when it suited her, using charm to smooth over her mistakes, and making sure she had someone to fall back on. She thought Nathan would be that someone. She was wrong. Nathan's entire scheme began to unravel just days after Ryan filed for divorce. Lucas, still seething with anger, decided he wasn't going to let his mother's so-called boyfriend walk away without consequences. If she was too blind to see that Nathan was using her, Lucas would make sure everyone else saw the truth. Late one night, Lucas sat in his room, staring at the collection of messages Sophie had pulled from Melissa's email. Nathan had been careful with his words, never outright admitting to using the women he targeted, but the patterns were obvious. The same flirty lines, the same promises of a future, the same manipulative tactics to convince them to give him money. Lucas took a deep breath, then started reaching out. At first, the women didn't believe him. Some ignored his messages, assuming he was just some bitter teenager trying to stir up drama. But then, one woman responded. Then another. Then another. And suddenly, Nathan had a very big problem. One woman had given him $20,000 to help expand his business. Another had paid for an entire vacation, believing they were in an exclusive relationship. A third had even co-signed on a car loan for him. All of them thought they were the one. Lucas made sure they all knew about each other. The fallout was immediate. Within a week, social media posts started circulating. Screenshots of texts, voice messages, and financial transactions flooded local Facebook group. The women, once desperate for Nathan's attention, now turned their anger toward him. And then came the final blow. Melissa had been avoiding reality, pretending that everything was fine even as Ryan moved forward with the divorce. She still had Nathan, she told herself. He was different. He cared about her. She was still telling herself this lie when she walked into Nathan's apartment one evening, carrying takeout she had bought for them. She didn't bother knocking, she had a key. She stepped inside, expecting to find Nathan waiting for her. Instead, she found him with someone else. Not just someone else, two someone else's. Her stomach dropped as she took in the scene. Nathan, half-dressed, lounging on the couch with two younger women draped over him, laughing at something on his phone. They didn't even notice her at first. But the neighbors did. A woman living across the hall, already well aware of the scandal swirling around Nathan, had seen Melissa walk in. She had been recording for weeks, hoping to catch something worth sharing in their small-town gossip circles. And now she had it. The moment Melissa screamed, the camera was rolling. "What the hell is this?" Nathan barely flinched. He looked up, sighed, and ran a hand through his hair. "Melissa, you really should have called first." Melissa's hands shook. "You're cheating on me? After everything I've done for you?" One of the women beside Nathan laughed. "You? Oh honey. You actually thought you were his girlfriend." The other woman smirked. "He told us you were just some old lady paying his bills." Melissa felt like the floor had been ripped out from under her. "That's not true. Nathan." Nathan stood up, stretching lazily. "Look, Melissa, I think you got the wrong idea. We had fun, but let's be real. You're not exactly my type long term." Melissa's vision blurred. "You used me." Nathan shrugged. "Yeah. And?" The humiliation burned through her like acid. The women laughed. Nathan smirked. The door slammed shut behind her as she stumbled out into the hallway, her breath coming in ragged gasps. And that's when she noticed the neighbor, holding up her phone, still recording. Melissa lunged for it. "Turn that off." The neighbor stepped back, grinning. "Oh, don't worry. Everyone's going to see this." And they did. By the next morning, the video had gone viral in their town. Melissa Langley, the woman who had cheated on her husband, stolen from her own children, and thrown away her family for a sleazy personal trainer, had just been publicly humiliated in the worst way possible. The comment sections were brutal. "This is what karma looks like. She ruined her life for this guy? LMAO. She deserves everything coming to her." Melissa tried to ignore it. She deleted her social media. She refused to leave her apartment. But the damage had already been done. And then came the divorce ruling. Ryan had been relentless. With Jason by his side, he had walked into court armed with undeniable evidence. The financial records, the messages, the dating profiles, the proof that Melissa had stolen from her own children. Melissa had expected some sympathy from the judge. She got none. She was ordered to pay back every single cent she had taken from Lucas and Sophie's college funds, with interest. She was denied alimony. She lost custody of the twins. And when she walked out of that courtroom, head spinning, reality finally crashed down on her. She had nothing. Her former friends, the ones she had gone on all those nights out with, stopped returning her calls. The gym, the place where she had first started her reckless spiral, had quietly revoked her membership after too many complaints from other members about the drama surrounding her. Nathan was long gone, moved out of town after too many women had come after him for the money he owed. And Ryan? Ryan thrived. He and the twins moved on. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs again. One night, months after everything had settled, Sophie sat at the kitchen table, flipping through her college acceptance letters. Lucas leaned over her shoulder, glancing at them. "You really did it," he said. Sophie smirked. "We did it." Ryan, standing at the counter, smiled. "I'm proud of you both." Sophie looked up. "And we're proud of you." Lucas nodded. "You didn't let her ruin us." Ryan exhaled, his heart feeling lighter than it had in years. "No," he said. "I didn't." And as they sat together, their family stronger than ever, Melissa sat alone in a tiny apartment, staring at a life she had willingly destroyed. No money. No family. No one left to blame but herself. Ryan had spent so much of his life fighting to hold everything together: his marriage, his family, his sense of self. But in the months after Melissa's downfall, something shifted. He no longer felt like he was losing something. Instead, he had finally let go of a weight that had been dragging him down for years. And life was finally good again. Melissa had thought she would destroy him, that he would collapse under the weight of her betrayal. But Ryan thrived. He kept the house, the home he had worked so hard for, the same home Melissa had abandoned for a cheap fantasy. The irony wasn't lost on him. She had thrown everything away for Nathan, and now she was the one struggling to keep a roof over her head. Ryan, on the other hand, had everything he needed. At work, his dedication paid off. A promotion he had been overlooked for in the past was finally his, along with a significant raise. He had spent years grinding, making sacrifices, and now it was all coming full circle. His colleagues, the ones who had once pitted him for the disaster that was his marriage, now looked at him with admiration. And as for Lucas and Sophie, they were unstoppable. Despite everything their mother had done, they refused to let her failures define them. Lucas had thrown himself into his studies, earning a full-ride scholarship for engineering. Sophie, ever the numbers expert, secured her own scholarship in finance, her relentless determination paying off. They had seen firsthand what selfishness and irresponsibility could do to a person. They had learned that lesson early. They would never be like her. Meanwhile, Melissa floundered. She still had no money, no support, no real friends. She spent her days pretending otherwise, posting filtered photos and inspirational quotes about starting fresh and embracing self-love. Her social media became a never-ending stream of cringe-worthy posts. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. I may be alone, but at least I'm free. A queen doesn't need a king to rule." Ryan didn't follow her anymore, but Sophie did. Not because she cared, because she enjoyed watching her mother's delusion play out in real time. "Mom's still trying to convince everyone she's thriving," Sophie snorted one evening, scrolling through her phone. Lucas rolled his eyes. "What is it this time?" Sophie turned the screen toward them. A picture of Melissa, holding a coffee cup, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. The caption? "I don't need validation. I am enough." Lucas laughed. "She's so full of it." Ryan just shook his head. "Let her pretend." And that was the difference between them and Melissa. She was stuck in a fantasy, desperately clinging to a reality that no longer existed. Ryan? He had moved on. And moving on had brought him something he never expected: Claire. Claire was everything Melissa wasn't. She was kind, genuine, grounded. They had met through mutual friends. Jason's wife had introduced them at a dinner, insisting that Ryan needed to meet someone real for once. At first, Ryan had been hesitant. He hadn't even thought about dating again. But Claire had surprised him. She was warm and patient, with a quiet strength that reminded him of everything good he had forgotten existed in a person. And the best part? The twins loved her. Lucas, who had been wary of any woman stepping into their lives after Melissa, actually respected Claire. Sophie, who trusted almost no one, had openly admitted, "She's the first person you've dated who doesn't make me want to gag." High praise coming from her. Claire never tried to replace their mother. She didn't need to. She was simply there, attending Lucas's engineering competitions, reading over Sophie's scholarship essays, listening when they needed to talk. She didn't make excuses. She didn't disappear when things got hard. She stayed. And that meant everything. One night, as Ryan sat outside on the porch, Claire beside him, he took a deep breath and let himself feel something he hadn't in years: peace. He looked at her, at the way she laughed softly at something she had read on her phone, completely present in the moment. Melissa had spent years chasing a fantasy. And in the end, she had destroyed herself. Ryan didn't have to do a thing. Because the best revenge was simply living well.